24 becomes 16 as the group stages of Euro 2020 drew to a close last night in scintillating fashion. The big guns survived, the underdogs bowed out, and the eyes of the footballing world turned to the knockouts. Welcome to the State of the Euros here on A State of Mind. I'm Seán McGill, and joining me to look back on last night's action, as well as the group stage as a whole, is co-editor of Energy Sport, Jack Donnelly. Jack, how are you?
Very well, Seán. How are you today?
Absolutely fantastic, and you know it. And I'm also joined by co-host of the Energy Extra Time podcast and Energy Sports resident, beautiful bearded man, Cameron Lonsdale.
That's a better introduction than I ever expected, to be honest. I'll take that.
Probably the best I've ever given you. And
yeah, definitely. The only nice one you've ever given me, to be honest.
That's the peak, and it's all back downhill from
here.
It was quite a night last night, eh? Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm currently... The reason I'm talking is because I'm trying to do some mental arithmetic in my head. Because I meant to take a note of how many goals that is. That's 8 in Group F. Mm-hmm. And then you add that 5, which makes 13, doesn't it, Jack? And you add another 5, and that makes 18. So that's 18 goals in 4 games, which is quite remarkable. And definitely a good way to end this group stage. So we'll start with Germany versus Hungary, because I think that's the one we're almost emotionally invested in last night. And before we get into the on-the-field stuff, I think we've got to start with off-the-field, because we spoke about it yesterday, Cameron, about sort of willing whoever controls the lights at the Allianz Arena to just turn on that pride flag. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. UEFA released a statement. I think they're sometimes better just not saying anything, because they came into even more stick for that. But there was still, you've got to look at the other stuff that happened. I mean, there was fans dressed in rainbow colours. The football stadiums around Germany lit up in the pride flag. There was the pitch invader, who are a couple of pitch invaders who came on to sort of make a stand. Manuel Neuer's armband as well. And I think if we've learned anything this year, and in football, in terms of the ESL, but in wider society as well, it's how important it is that people express themselves and their values, and especially when they feel like their respective governing bodies are letting them down or not making their voices heard in the way that they should be. And that was another example of that last night, and a heartwarming one.
Yeah, that's it. When the big man sits you down and says, no, you're not doing this, it just means everyone else has to chip in. I think that's what the Streakers did, it's what France did, it's what Manuel Neuer did. We've seen it as well, I've been talking about this the last few days with you guys, that also the Hungary goalkeeper, I think, is it Peter Galaski at RB Leipzig? He's been a huge supporter of LGBTQ issues in his homeland, and he's been really supportive, and he's went against his government. And I think even though Hungary themselves as a nation, as a government, have let themselves down, I think the footballers haven't. And I think if players like that keep speaking out, maybe it will make a difference back in their homeland, and hopefully it does, because it seems like UEFA won't do anything about it.
Yeah, Jack, I saw some criticism for the media coverage last night that didn't really mention this issue. It was all about the fans being in good spirits, but nothing really about the issues at hand here. So how important is it that media outlets, as well as the fans, take a stand and talk about this stuff, and at least acknowledge that it's happening, because it's clearly important to the fans, it's important to the people who it's around. So if they're talking about it, that's surely what the media should be talking about.
You're absolutely right. I mean, there's really no reason the media should just kind of be glossing over or ignoring issues like these at all. I mean, it's clearly a massive issue, and it is a massive issue, not just in football, but in society as general. We're wanting to get to that level of equality across the board, no matter what it is. So if there's an opportunity for a broadcaster to take a step in that direction, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't.
Yeah,
or shouldn't rather. Yeah.
And more power to the people who did that. I think I like that comment there from Kevin Graham. Life is politics, football is politics. Football should be used for a force for good. I'm not a fan of anyone who says that there's no place for politics in sport. Everything is politics, and if sport can make a change in the world, a positive change in the world, then that's can only be a good thing. Let's get on to the football then. And Cameron, I think for all the good that Hungary have shown, I personally expected Germany to make fairly light work of them and sort of really come to the fore themselves after that good performance against Portugal and sort of end this stream. But that goal on the 11th minute, that brilliant cross from deep that was headed home so emphatically by Soloy really, really got you dreaming. And it was just something that sort of sums up tournament football, wasn't it? The sort of excitement you can get from these moments and the underdog taking the lead within the first 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, definitely. Hungary, like you got to remember, Hungary finished top of their group in Euro 2016, and yet they've came into this group still as the underdog because they're in a massive group of death against world champions, European champions. And I think that moment, him scoring, it just set. I think we all knew from that point that it was going to be a good day of football. We knew it was going to be a good evening because it just set itself up so perfectly. Oh my God! All of a sudden, Hungary, who are bottom, now going through. Portugal are now bottom. It goes on and on. But it was really Germany just hoover out the blocks. Like we saw them against France. They were fantastic in their last game, and you expected that to roll over into this one, and somehow it just didn't click. It didn't seem like they changed too much tactically. I didn't think maybe a few changes, but no, I really did expect Germany. I've been supporting Hungary for a while, and going into this game, I thought no, like they're not going to be able to hold back Germany here, but they gave it their best shot, and I think it was very undeserving that they went out. I think it was very unfortunate.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with you on that one. And Jack, the heartbreak started through an equaliser from Kai Havertz, and we'll get on to what happened just moments after. But he seems to be key to what Germany are trying to do, and I'm sure you'll have seen a lot of them considering your sympathies south of the border. So talk to me about Kai Havertz, because it was sort of a slow burn into that Chelsea side this season, and but he seems to be Germany's sort of focal point and the most likely to score goals for them, really, in the absence of an out-and-out striker.
Yeah, I think as a player he's very fluid. I think there's not really a position across the front line that he wouldn't be able to play, and I think that is massive for Jogi Löw and his system going into this tournament, is the fact that he has such an interchangeable player. And without an out-and-out striker, as you say, we've no longer got Miroslav Klose in the Germany setup as we did back in 2014, where he was the focal point of the attack. Having someone like Havertz, who he's a tall lad, he's quick, he's got bags of technical ability, and he's got an eye for goal, as we've seen kind of towards the end of the Premier League season. The Champions League final, he scored the only goal of the game, and I think that's 2 goals for him, or potentially 3 in this tournament now. So he's been great for Germany, and I think he will be the man that they're going to be relying on to kick on with in the knockouts.
And Cameron, like you said, it seemed like the heartbreak was setting in then, but Hungary were just like, no bother, we'll just go at the and go ahead again. And it was Soloy again dinking the ball through to Schaefer, who just fearlessly launched himself at that ball. It was quite remarkable, really. Where does that sort of rank for you in moments of the tournament so far? Because I'd say personally it's pretty high up there.
Well, you said yourself, you shouted when it went in, didn't you? You actually got invested in it. Yeah.
We talk about it all the time, but I love an underdog story.
Yeah.
And just the fact that it was so soon after, and the fact that there was Manuel Neuer's not shy off his line. We've become aware of that over the past 10 years. And the fact that he was still beaten by Schaefer, who just chucked himself at it, like body in complete disregard of his safety, was commendable to him. So, yeah.
I thought it was brilliant. I was still on my phone. Like I was so depressed by the Germany goal. I just went, I'm just going to look at my phone. Like I'm done with this game, basically. I look up and all of a sudden Schaefer's just like 5 yards ahead of Leroy Sané, who I don't know why he was marking him. But yeah, brilliant. I'd put it maybe, I know we'll talk about highlights of the group stage later, but it could be a top 5 moment for me, definitely.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you there. And Jack, of course, the equaliser comes from Leon Goretzka, and it means that Hungary go out. But it's been at Euro 2016, like Cam said there, they topped their group. But before that, it had been 44 years since Hungary had last qualified for Euros, and they got out of the group then, and they've made a great account of themselves in this tournament. Again, I mean, everyone wrote them off, and they've performed well above expectations. So do you think this can be somewhat of a springboard for Hungarian football? Because of course they were a powerhouse back in the day. Is this maybe the start of something that people can get invested in, and hopefully a progression of new talent for the country?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been massively impressed with Hungary, all without their most talented attacking player. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his surname because I would just butcher it.
I don't know.
We'll go with that. And the fact is, Dominic. His first name's Dominic. We'll go with that. And they've been really, really up for it. That's what I've been most impressed about, because I think coming into this, they knew that they were going to be written off completely. I mean, going up against the current European champions, the current world champions, and the second last world champions as well. So really didn't see any way at the group from the get-go. But I think in the first game, they took the fight to Portugal completely. I think 3-0 flatters Portugal in that opening game, considering it all just kind of seemed to fall apart in the last 5-10 minutes. It was a fantastic performance again against France, really being able to stifle them and take the lead, as they did against Germany last night. And then they took the lead twice last night, and it was very unfortunate to see them concede that late equaliser to Goretzka, as you just said. So I think this is definitely a project that people in Hungary and the wider football community could potentially see kick on and be more prominent at major tournaments in years to come.
For me, it seems mental. I was talking about Leon Goretzka there, who scored the equaliser. Goretzka and Kimmich are arguably the most talented double pivot in club European football. And the fact that Germany have that available to them and don't recreate it seems so odd to me. And I know there's talented players there in Toni Kroos and Ilkay Gundogan, but I mean, we saw this season in the Premier League that Gundogan's very useful at breaking forward into the box. He's been asked to be a 6 effectively in this system for Löw. So, and Kimmich's talent seems to be his downfall at times, because he's so good in so many positions that he gets thrown about. But I think Goretzka was struggling with some injuries, but hopefully this is him making a marker on this team, because he's a fantastic player to watch, and one that would give a bit more drive and energy, I think, to that German midfield. And speaking of that, Cam, what do we make of Germany? Because it's been a kind of stop-start group stage for them, and we know they'll go to Wembley and play England. We were told that multiple times during the broadcast last night. But it was when Hungary scored that, went ahead again, and Robbie Savage goes, "Who are England playing now?" is his initial thought, which is, I mean, he's not even English.
He's Welsh. He's Welsh.
It was mental. I mean, he was trying to sum up this sort of frantic nature of it all, which is what we're trying to do as well. But it was just a weird. It's not the first thing I would have thought in that moment.
Missed the mark.
Yeah, but do you think Germany go into that one as favourites? Because England haven't been overwhelmingly convincing. Germany, I think you put in the same category. Germany perhaps maybe look a bit more fragile at the back, whereas England don't look too much like scoring. So it's sort of an interesting juxtaposition there. Yeah,
it's a weird one. I think both teams are kind of the same. They both had quite poor group stages. We've seen Germany in the past turn it on after the group stage. They've not looked good at all. Went into the knockouts and wow, prime Germany sort of thing. But I think that game, it's got to come down to who scores first, I think. I know that's a really old cliche, but I think England, if they get a lead, they can hold on to it. But I think if Germany get the lead and England start chasing the game, then they're going to be in trouble. Like, Germany can counter-attack incredibly. I don't think England have... I think they can sit in deep and hold on, but I think defend them while they're really trying to attack, I don't think that's going to be England's forte. I don't think that's what they've been planning for this tournament. I think Southgate's really about game management, get a lead, hold on to it, and I think, depending on who scores first, that's who goes through, I think.
Pat O saying in the comments there that Germany are good, but England will be justified favourites at Wembley. So it'll be interesting to see how that one develops. I think this German side, although they don't look the complete package, we've definitely seen resilience so far in those games. I mean, against France, although they didn't get back into it, they certainly sort of pushed for an equaliser. They came from behind against Portugal, and of course they came from behind twice last night against Hungary. So we'll need to see if they can sort of recreate that in the group stages, but resilience is such a key factor in knockout football. So if they do, maybe I'm contradicting Cam, but if they do fall a goal behind at Wembley, we've seen them get back into games, so they might be able to do it again in the later stages. We'll move on now to France versus Portugal. It would be so easy to spend the next 10 minutes or so debating all these penalty decisions. Other people will do that. That's not really our style. I find that sort of punditry a little bit tedious at times. So what I'll just ask you both is, there was 3 penalties awarded. How many should have been awarded? Very quickly, I'll start with Jack.
2. 2 should have been awarded, yeah.
2. Yep.
2 penalties. I assume we all think that after slating Nelson Semedo on yesterday's show. He was hard done by in that supposed foul on Kylian Mbappe. So let's move on now, Jack, and we can talk about. I think you've got to talk about Paul Pogba, and it happens all the time with France, because we see him. He's constantly sort of debated, and his character and his performances and so much about him is dissected on television every week in this country for his performances for Manchester United, and then he turns to France. And I don't know if. Would you think it's fair to say that it just seems like the shackles are off? It's just a completely different player.
I still don't think there should even be a debate over his ability. He is an absolutely phenomenal footballer. I'm glad you brought him up, because it was that pass to Benzema for France's second goal just after the break. I don't see how he's seen that. Honestly, he was so far into his own half and just spots Benzema breaking through, line-splitting pass, and then he gets the goal from it. There is no reason for me to think that Paul Pogba is anything short of an excellent footballer. And the fact that there's still a debate over whether he's any good in this country is baffling, because he's clearly excellent. And he's a real leader in that French team. I mean, he's the first one at the referee at every decision, just asking, why have you given that? Why have you blown for that? Why are you going against us for this one? He is an outright leader. He leads that team by example. You saw how popular he was following the World Cup win and how influential he was in Russia. So it's the exact same here, and it's really, really nice to see a lot of these unwarranted criticisms just being blown out the water by these tremendous performances.
Yeah, and I think it's got to be top of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's priority list to find a way to recreate that type of Pogba. It might be hard with Bruno Fernandes in that side as well, but for me, I think it's pretty unarguable that Paul Pogba at the peak of his powers is a far better player than Bruno Fernandes at the peak of his powers, and I think he could be the difference if Manchester United were to close that gap to their city rivals. Cam, we'll move on and talk about another France player, and that's Karim Benzema. Got a brace last night, and I think it was important that he did score last night, because with every game that goes on, when you've got a player waiting in the wings such as Olivier Giroud, who has that fantastic goal record for France, only second to Thierry Henry, questions are going to get asked if Benzema didn't start scoring. But do you think last night was an insight into why Benzema being recalled is viewed as such a massive coup for Didier Deschamps?
Yeah, definitely, because his goal was fantastic. Obviously, he scored a penalty as well, not taking anything away from that. But the goal itself was brilliant. Pogba, fantastic assist, better than the goal, but it's still a really good goal from Benzema. I think Olivier Giroud is a great goal scorer. So it is, you do have to ask questions, why even call up Benzema when you've got him there? I know there's been a rift between him and Mbappe, but I don't think that means much. I think, questions were probably being asked at last night's game, and if he didn't score, there'd be a real risk that he'd be dropped through the knockouts. I think Giroud would have been recalled back in to start. But he kept faith in them, and he got the 2 goals, and I think he's got everyone back on side, and now we could see the real Karim Benzema come to the fore in the knockout rounds. Yeah,
I love that finish. It was sort of like the perfect amount of scuff. Like, if he missed it, you'd have gone, what are you doing there? If you seen it on a Sunday league and it had gone wide, you'd thought, well, that's an absolutely rotten finish. But he just intentionally hit the ball a little bit further up, just so I think he's just a wonderful player. And it's a shame that front three haven't quite clicked, because they're 3 players that I've very much enjoyed over their respective careers. Obviously, Mbappe is a lot shorter than Benzema. I'm not praising Antoine Griezmann too much, don't worry, Cam. I would love to see that clicking. Jack, Kylian Mbappe, we're still waiting on a goal. And he's one of the players I think everyone gets most excited about watching in tournaments after that sort of the Golden Boy performance in the Russia World Cup. Do you feel like it's coming? Do you feel like maybe the knockout stages is where the youngster can sort of really, really thrive and take this tournament by the scruff of his neck? Because I think that's what we're all waiting for him to do.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think from having watched France a couple of times this tournament, I think I missed the majority of the Hungary game, but it just kind of seemed to be long ball to Mbappe and use his speed. That's kind of all they've really wanted to utilise him for, is his speed in the counter, from my viewing of it anyway. He's an exceptional player, but France do have that kind of history of not really being at 100% in group stages. We've seen them kind of struggle in group stages past. So I think if he is going to kick on, he's going to kick on in the first game. And I think Switzerland in the round of 16 is the perfect opportunity for him to really leave his mark on this tournament if he does, because he's the calibre of player that can just do it whenever he wants, really. So there's definitely an opportunity for him to leave his mark on the tournament against Switzerland in the next round.
And Cameron, when talking about Portugal, I am desperate to talk about somebody else in Cristiano Ronaldo, because we've been doing it for so long. And you can get excited about this team considering the attacking talent that we have. We spoke about it yesterday, but he continues to force us into talking about him because he is the goal scoring man. He is at the forefront of this side. He's now the top goal scoring European in major tournament football with 21 goals after his 2 penalties last night. That's 14 of those are at the Euros. Are they still too reliant on Cristiano Ronaldo? If he's not firing, Cristiano Ronaldo's far better than just his penalties, but if you aren't getting those penalties in those games, can Portugal sort of break down these solid sides that they're going to come up against in the next round? We know they play Belgium in the last 16.
Yeah, it's a weird one. It's like it just doesn't click for them either. We're saying this quite a lot. It's like same with France. It just hasn't really clicked for them. We've seen Bruno Fernandes was not in the starting 11 yesterday. It seemed like they were moving towards a more like possession-based sort of tactic. And if you keep tinkering with these tactics, it's never going to click. You know what I mean? You've got to try, and I know you've got to adapt a little bit to your opponents, but changing your whole system could be a worry. And I think that's why they're relying on penalties from Cristiano Ronaldo. Like, they have so many good players. You know, João Felix has come back into the fore. Bruno Fernandes, you've got Bernardo Silva. I'm forgetting someone, but they've got one or two more outstanding forwards. And and we're still talking about Ronaldo. Like, he is the focal point of that team. He's the talisman. And I think as long as he's in that team, we're going to be talking about just him. I don't see any of these other players taken over the mantle of the spearheader of that attack. He played quite a lot on the left wing yesterday, and yet he was still part of every part of the game. He was defending, he was winning the ball back, he was passing, he was crossing, he was attacking, he was doing absolutely everything. And he probably shouldn't be at his age with all these young starlets about him. They should probably be doing more of the running, more of the actual hard work, more of the playmaking. He should just be there to finish the chances, but that's not how it is, because he's just he's superhuman. That's the best way to describe him.
Yeah. He's an absolute machine. And Jack, I think you both of you have alluded it to your answers throughout this segment, but both of these sides have been disappointing in the group stages, despite being, I'd say, a lot of people's sort of, France were certainly a lot of people's favourites, and then Portugal were sort of in that group of maybe 2 or 3 behind them. Do you think if you were a fan of these nations, their performances so far would concern you, or do you expect these sides to sort of come alive under the bright lights of knockout football?
I think you would have to. I think a lot of fans would have just been, right, just get through, because as good as these teams are, seeing the group that they're in and seeing the competition that they were up against, I mean, we've already spoken about the fact that Hungary are no slouches whatsoever. So I think they would have just been happy with progression at the first point. And then the amount of pressure that these players and these teams, your likes of Mbappe, Benzema, Ronaldo, Fernandes, all these superstars, they've been at the highest level. They've played in massive finals and things like that, had that pressure on their shoulders. And essentially, they can go into each game until the final knowing that this is a set. They play it as though it's a final, realistically. So they're going to have that pressure on their shoulders, but they're so good at dealing with it. I mean, Ronaldo is an absolute menace under pressure. He's so good, regardless of the pressure on him. So there's going to be no real added weight for him. And I think, given it's going to be a one-off game and that is going to be the only result that matters up until the next round, I think that we're going to see potentially a different side to these teams in the knockout stages.
See a comment there from David Bradley that says Ronaldo might be the GOAT. I mean, we've not got time to get into that today, but unfortunately not, David. Let's move swiftly on to Group E, and we'll start with Spain versus Slovakia. It was a 5-star performance from the Spaniards as they dispatched of their Slovak opposition. Before they got their shooting boots on, and there was a massive amount of squandered chances here for Spain, and most sort of notably would be their penalty miss, which is now their 5th consecutive penalty miss, 5 different takers as well. How concerning would you find that if you were Luis Enrique?
That's terrible. Imagine going to a penalty shootout knowing you're probably going to get beat 3-0. Like, that's a granny in a penalty shootout at a major tournament. No, it was terrible. The penalty itself was really, I thought the penalty was terrible. Like, it's a goalkeeper's height just to the side of him. No real power behind it. And you can even tell by his technique where he's going. It's one of the easiest penalty saves ever.
I saw what people say it was a great save, and I really didn't think it was. I mean,
it's not taking anything away from Dubravka, but I suppose now his reputation doesn't matter after what happened afterwards. But but it wasn't a good penalty. Like he done well to read the technique, see where he was going. It's like he knew, basically kept his foot on the line as well. So important, but I think that makes it more impressive. But yeah, a terrible penalty. And like you said, twice they just air kicked the ball. I mean, Sarabia and I think it was maybe Moreno or Morata again. But Sarabia's one was probably even worse. In fact, maybe Pedri for the second one. But just air kicking the ball, totally missing the ball on one opportunities is awful. I'd be shouting at people at 5-a-sides if they were doing that. Like, this is a European Championship. But they turned it on after that. But I think, as we'll probably get on to, that was more to do with Slovakia being just god awful than it was Spain being very, very good.
Something that's really frustrated me throughout this Euros is sort of these sort of really bold takes by pundits. They just seem to sort of think that these sort of claims you can make about players after watching them are spot on straight away. I mean, I saw this one yesterday. Someone said Dubravka is a solid keeper. And, it was a Jack Donnelly who said that yesterday.
That's a valid
Jack.
Thank you. Thank you. That's completely unwanted.
Jack, it perhaps wasn't the brightest moment, not just for Martin Dubravka, but before your football insights yesterday.
Well, my integrity is completely ruined. The fact that that's just been broadcast out to however many people are watching this, but I stand by it. It was just unfortunate that it came 5 minutes before one of the most ridiculous own goals he'd ever seen. He wished that he had Joe Hart's cap from when he played at Hampden in the 2-2 draw against Scotland, just so he could keep the sun out of his eyes. It was comical is the word I would use to describe it. And it was, as soon as I watched that, I just had that sinking feeling of I've just made a claim, and it's just completely been undone by that one moment broadcast to that many. So I'll stand by my take. I still think he's a very good goalkeeper. I think he's not been picked up upon a lot because this season he's been injured a lot and he's not played too much for Newcastle. When he does, they look fantastic and they've got that extra sense of security at the back. And I think had that not happened to him just after half an hour, I probably would be quite resolute in my opinion, rather than just being a bit.
You know what, though, Jack? You know what? The good thing is, he didn't concede again, did he, Sean? He didn't concede again. I
think it was just that one error.
It was 1-0 at ended, Jack.
In my mind, it still ended 0-0, to be honest, because I just switched off as soon as I saw the ball dropping towards him. That was, I blacked out after that. I honestly don't remember a thing after that moment. I
do actually also think that Martin Dubravka's a keeper. I take any opportunity to wind you up, Jack.
Of course,
but actually, it turns out that he did concede more goals, and the first of those came from Aymeric Laporte. Why am I struggling to say that so much? Aymeric Laporte. And in the absence of Ramos, Cameron, it was his first international goal. And when the commentator said that, I was kind of like, oh, is it really? And then I forget he's played 4 international games because he's just changed. You expect a player of that calibre to be racking up the international goals for a while now. How key is he for the present and I guess the future as well of this Spanish defence?
Yeah, I think he's been a rock for it, to be honest. I think this tournament alone, I think he's made a difference. Spain haven't looked good, but at least their defence has seemed okay-ish. I think that's been helped by him being there. And I think for the future, massive. He's still fairly young, isn't he? He's only 20.
Aymeric Laporte is still in his sort of early to mid-20s.
Yeah, 20 years. Yeah, he's got at least up to 10 years left in him at centre back if he keeps fit. And we've seen him for Man City. He's been unfortunate with a few injuries, a few deadly ones, but
27.
Oh, he's 27. Maybe a half dozen years then. Maybe a half dozen years. I thought he was a bit younger too. I'm shocked it took him that long to transfer to Spain, not getting into the France team, to be honest.
Really trying.
Yeah, but you know what? He's also he's versatile as well. I think Jordi Alba is maybe getting to an age where he'll be sort of shifted out of the team. I'm not sure if Spain have any other great left backs coming through. Feel free to tell me if I'm wrong, but he can at least be a cover there in future too. Regular, yeah, I suppose regular. It's maybe not kicked on so much at Spurs, but he's shown his talent, hasn't he? So it's certainly a good cover at least there. But it's good to have a versatile player in defence, and he's definitely that.
And Jack, there was goals from Sarabia and Ferran Torres, and then that Cuckoo own goal as well, which I thought was quite harsh on Pau Torres, but it's one of those. And on yesterday's show, we sort of begged Spain to come alive, surely for the nostalgia of seeing a good Spain. I mean, did those Spain sides really come alive? I remember they won the World Cup scoring 8 goals. But was this them doing that yesterday? Did we sort of see Spain sort of step back towards what we hope to see? It's not just possession for possession's sake. It's sort of stifling opposition and trying to carve out the best opportunities they can to get goals and to entertain us as well.
I don't know if this is the Spain that we can expect to see on a regular basis, because I'm a big believer of luck balancing itself out, and I think after all these spurned chances in the first 2 games, something had to give, and it just happened that they were going up against one of the worst teams at the tournament. No disrespect to Slovakia, but they just are. They haven't been good at all. So I think 5-0, you're very rarely going to see a Spain team. I say that, and they went on and beat Germany 6-0 last year, was it?
Yeah,
so, could have been that. Yeah. I can't remember the exact scoreline, but again, I just think it's just that lack of a clinical touch. I mean, your likes of Alvaro Morata, Gerard Moreno, they've not been at the races for Spain at all. Gerard Moreno had a great season. Alvaro Morata has his critics, absolutely, but they're still both decent enough strikers that they should be more consistent than they have been. And I fear that this kind of reserved approach and trying to control the game isn't going to work for them too well going up against Croatia in the next round. I feel like Croatia just have that overarching quality in midfield and attack that they're probably going to be able to press Spain high and reclaim ball in areas that Spain won't want to lose it in. So I'm not massively confident for Spain going forward, I have to say, and I think that was just the straw that broke the camel's back yesterday in those 5 goals coming all at once.
And Cam, very quickly, should touch on Slovakia, just because when you win your first game in this tournament, I think there's an expectation that you should get to the knockout stages, considering you probably only need, well, it proved to be the case, you only would have needed 1 more point to get through. And of course, they were maybe a bit lucky in that with the red cards in the Poland game. So do you think this is going to be a disappointment looking back, and particularly the way after that mistake from Dubravka, they did kind of seem to just collapse. It was almost a sense of surrender in this game.
Yeah, I think Slovakia, surely they won't be too disheartened. I think I don't know if it's a tough group, but it's one where you go, oh, we could be in trouble here. Like, we're not the biggest nation, and we could be in trouble. I think the last few tournaments have had Marek Hamšík, top form, an incredible attack midfielder, and he's been we've heard about his troubles. He's been in China. He's came back to play in Sweden just to get fit for this tournament. He looked like a shell of him. He didn't look like himself. I think they've got Milan Skriniar in defence, the Inter Milan centre-back. Didn't see any of him in this tournament, really. Andrzej Duda didn't impress. Martin Dubravka, well, talked about him. They're not... Yeah, they're not. I don't think they came into this tournament. They were maybe thinking outside chance of going through it. I don't think there'll be much disappointment. I think it should be a case of we're quite a small nation. We're not like they've been not a regular at recent tournaments, but they've been there a few times. And I think if they want to continue that, they've definitely got to get some good youth prospects through, because no one else in that team really shone. No one put their name on. Like, no one really had a great time in this tournament. They were quite poor throughout, and yeah, we might not see a lot of them for the next 5-10 years, I don't think.
Yeah, we'll move on now to Sweden versus Poland. It was maybe one that we weren't expecting too much from, but it proved to be a cracker. And Jack, football hipsters like yourself and me have been pushing Alexander Isak as one to watch in this Sweden side. And Emil Forsberg is telling us to grow up and pay attention to him. He's got 4 goals in his last 4 games for Sweden, 2 yesterday. That first one, he just keeps sort of powering through and slams the ball home. And then for the second one, I mean, a massive share of the credit has got to go to Dejan Kulusevski, who tries to do his own half before teeing up the RB Leipzig man on the edge of the box, and then he places it into the bottom corner. And like a lot of talk about Isak, but Forsberg, who we've seen perform for RB Leipzig for so many years, seems to be the talisman for this side at the moment.
He seems to be, especially just because I think had Isak scored at the tournament so far, he probably would have taken that title for himself, but he's oddly been substituted after an hour in every game despite his obvious quality. I think Forsberg, he was great yesterday, and he's been fantastic for Leipzig in the Bundesliga, and I think it's a very kind of I don't really know how to describe Sweden, to be quite honest with you, because I feel like they are quite reliant on their heavy hitters. I don't think the quality runs deep throughout the whole team. I think when you have players like Isak, Forsberg and Kulusevski in attack, I feel like you can probably go on and beat anyone, but it kind of the rest of the midfield and the defence can be quite suspect at times. You know, you've got the likes of Mikael Lustig, who I know a lot of viewers of this channel will be very familiar with. You've got the likes of Victor Lindelof in there, who can be convincing. Other times he can just be very, very concerning. So I think they go either way, but to answer your original question, Forsberg has been brilliant. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, and I would love to see more of Kulusevski, because I was talking about Scotland needing a player who's just a bit of an enigma, who can just do something unexpected in those forward areas, and he's certainly that. And he kind of fell out the team at Juventus under Andrea Pirlo last season. I would love to see with Massimiliano Allegri back in there, I'd love to see him get some more minutes in Turin, because he's a very exciting young player. And we spoke about sort of the idea of Forsberg being Sweden's talisman there, Cam. There's no doubt about who Poland's talisman is, and that's, of course, Robert Lewandowski. He got his first major tournament goal last match day, 2 more in this game last night. And I think it kind of summed up maybe just how rounded a striker Robert Lewandowski is. We kind of imagine him as this penalty box striker, but particularly that second goal where he just wraps it round the keeper. There's so much Robert Lewandowski, and it's maybe disappointing the fact that Poland have been so poor despite having the best striker in the world in their team. I
just want to say first, I've been called Martin Compston's dad in the chat, and I love that. Can I just say that's absolutely fantastic. That's amazing. Thank you, Daniel Mick.
I mean, you've got to be
your surname is.
At least 15 years younger than Martin. I don't know what age Martin Compston is. Probably 20 years younger than Martin Compston, and you're his dad.
I'll still take it every day, mate. That's fantastic.
Being a Hearts fan does that to you, doesn't it? It adds the years.
It does.
Ages completely, yeah.
Too many relegations. But no, Lewandowski. No, it's all about positioning for him, I think. He's just always in the right place, right time. Both goals were the case, especially that second one. Sometimes it's a bit of luck, but right place, right time. Takes every chance so well. And I'm really upset for him that Poland just aren't at it. A bit like Slovakia, not many big names outside of him, not enough talent maybe.
A lot of people were disappointed by Poland, Cam. They thought they were going to go quite far. I didn't have them getting out of this group. I really wasn't. I didn't feel much towards this Poland side outside of Lewandowski coming into this tournament. I think I maybe thought that both of them and Slovakia likely to be like the third and fourth place teams, and the third place team goes out still. I thought they maybe got like 2 and 1 point respective. I don't know if that's how it turned out. Actually, I've totally forgot, but that's what it seems like. I think Poland, they just didn't have anything about them, really. If they did, it would be a massive shock if they'd gotten through. It would have been a Lewandowski masterclass, and it almost was. I'll give credit to Poland, though, because I said that last night, that they actually did chase a winner. Like, they knew they needed a winner, and they actually chased it. Also didn't work out for them. Sweden got a last-minute winner, but they went for it, and that's more to say than some countries. You could even make that case that Scotland didn't do that. So fair play to them. Unfortunately, they're out. And we can look back now on the group stage as a whole. And Jack, there's no argument it's been an entertaining one. 94 goals in 36 matches. So that's 2.62 goals per match. A goal scored every 34 minutes. What's going on? Is defending dead, Jack?
Who needs defenders? Honestly, who needs defence? We want to see goals, don't we?
Definitely.
I mean, teams only really want to defend when they come up against Scotland, clearly. It's just been really good. I've really, really enjoyed this tournament so far. I don't know if that does have something to do with Scotland being there, and obviously our presence kind of livening the whole country up. I feel like it's Euros fever. Everyone's talking about the tournament, regardless of where you are. But there's been some honestly top class moments. There's been some fantastic goals, and I really, really hope it's the same going into the knockouts. I'll say this, and there's going to be every game ending in a penalty shootout, but more goals if that's possible.
Sorry, I'm back. And so let's talk about some of our favourite moments from the group stage. I'll let you kick off, Cam, because it's definitely been, like I said, an entertaining one. What's standing out to you?
I I could be just basic and say Callum McGregor's goal. Do you want me to do that, or should we go into something more exciting? I feel like we've talked about that, I feel like we've talked about that maybe enough.
Did Jack talk about Callum McGregor's goal? You weren't here, were you?
No, I wasn't.
Why can you talk about Callum McGregor's goal?
Callum McGregor's goal. Come on. Oh, that's going to be top of everyone's.
At a major tournament.
Aye, it's going to be top of every Scotsman's list, or Scotswoman's. But the fact that I still think it's an underrated goal as well. It's on his weak foot, 4 men to beat, and the goalkeeper right in the bottom corner. He had no time to react either, just a quick touch and shot. And fantastic goal. If Jack's not spoken about it, I'll let him give his feelings on the goal.
And Callum McGregor's goal. I'm just reeling from the fact that Daniel Mick has now compared me to Craig from Coronation Street. And I think that's an absolute violation. But
and he looks up.
Yeah, I'm not a soaps man, so that one.
No, I went over mine. I had to look him up, and I'm no best pleased.
You shouldn't be giving them fuel because it'll just get progressively worse. Well, the comments will start coming in.
You're saying this because he's not done you yet, and now he's going to have to find someone for.
I'm pretty sure I look like Ryan Christie every show, which I'm taking, to be honest.
You'll take that over Craig Corey for God's sake. Anyway, Callum McGregor's goal. That's what we're talking about.
Oh, you go, Craigie boy.
Well, no, it was. You described it, Sean, as an out-of-body experience, and I feel like it was exactly that. I was in the pub with my mates, and we were just downtrodden, and we just kept complaining because we weren't really doing anything. Nothing was falling for us, and obviously we were 1-0 down at the time. You see him pick that up on the edge of the box and just lash it into the bottom corner, and I just absolutely catapulted myself up and screamed. Like there was this guttural roar that left my throat. Like it was, I don't even know what it said, but it was just that moment that you've seen your country score at an international tournament for the first time in your lifetime, and there's not really a feeling that matched it. Obviously, the feeling was heavily depleted after Croatia went on and scored 2 and we got knocked out. But that moment will stay with me for a long, long time just because of the significance of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely mentioned this in an earlier show, but I just love Andreas Christensen's absolute rocket into the back of the net. And not just because it was a great goal, not just because it came from an unlikely source, but because of the emotion around Denmark and the way that crowd reacted and the way I'm sure that country reacted, and probably even wider the footballing world. I mean, I think everyone's going to have a soft spot for Denmark throughout this tournament now after the way they carried themselves in the face of tragedy, and just the outpouring of emotion that came from that team and those fans, and I think that Denmark being everyone's wee sort of underdog throughout this tournament will be a nice story going forward. I love to see them make a really good run and make Christian Eriksen proud, as I'm sure they already have with their performances. Jack, have you got a moment so far that stands out to you?
I think it was just that moment that we kind of got the all clear that Christian Eriksen was going to be okay, because I remember just sitting in absolute disbelief at what had happened, and I couldn't speak, I couldn't move. It was just a complete shock to the system. I didn't really think I'd ever see something like that, having watched high-level football for a while, and then just getting the notification that he'd been in hospital, he'd talked to the Denmark team, and then he was eventually discharged. That was probably going to be, that's the moment of the tournament for me. The fact, that image of the Danish players, you've got Thomas Delaney in absolute hysterics, just standing so strong alongside Simon Kjær, Kasper Schmeichel, Andreas Christensen, that is going to live with me probably for the rest of my life. Just the showcase of strength from the Danish national team and the fans in the stadium as well. It was unbelievable.
I find it really hard to articulate that moment. Now we're removed from it. The level of sort of, I don't know, distress and I genuinely just thought I'd seen a player who I've watched for years and years and years pass away live on TV, and it was I find it hard to think back to it now, not in any sort of like stressful sort of way. I just mean that I don't know how to talk about it because it was such a like you say, an experience that I don't think any of us thought we would see. Anything else, Cam, that you'd like to?
I've got. I thought a game that's been quite forgotten was Holland 3, Ukraine 2. don't know if you remember, because we were having a chat about it at the time, because I'd been back in Ukraine like I do every single underdog. But just everyone kind of jumped in because I'd backed Ukraine, and obviously they're getting beat 2-0. And I gave it the big one when they got 2 goals back in quick succession. Then I had to leave the group chat because Holland went and won it because Ukraine's goalkeeper kind of let them down. But I thought that was a brilliant game. I loved watching that game. It was really exciting. 2 teams that seemed just quite poor at the back, but quite strong in attack, and 5 goals in it. I thought that was a great game. So that's one of my highlights as well.
Jack, any other ones for you?
Just before I say anything else, you're getting called Methadone Mick in the live stream chat now. So we've got Martin Constance, Craig from Coronation Street, and Methadone Mick doing a podcast talking about the Euros. Football just brings folk together, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know personally for me, I'd love to see Billy Gilmore getting all the plaudits on at the 0-0 draw with England. I mean, Ayrshire boy, so he's doing us proud. That was good for me. I'm trying to think that Germany Portugal, the 4-2. I loved that because Cameron, I was with you at the time. I was with you in the pub through in Dalkeith, and we were sitting watching it, and we kind of didn't expect that scoreline whatsoever after Germany's first game, and Portugal kind of took until the kind of 80th minute or so to get their first against Hungary. So we didn't really expect a scoreline like that, and then just blown away by Robin Gosens at left wing back, and the ensuing chaos that followed in that game with 6 goals. It was a fantastic watch and match. Top tier Alipay, as we've been describing the camera, haven't we?
Absolutely, that's what it was. It was brilliant. That's a good one because that was a fantastic game to watch as well.
Hope you guys enjoyed the pub without me.
You didn't come.
I'm very glad you didn't come. Actually, considering
yeah, probably a good idea. I'm going to talk about. I mean, they did it last time round, but I love seeing Wales doing well. I don't know if it's that.
I've got that as well.
Connection, but I just think they're not the most talented side of the tournament. I know we talk about that sort of attacking trio they have, but they play for each other. They play out their skin, and they fight from each other. And I love Kiefer Moore because he's 6'5". He's an absolute huddy, but he scores goals. He gets himself about. And the fact that he throws himself at every header despite having fractured his skull is immensely brave. And people might be fans of free-flowing football, and I am at the best times as well, but maybe it's because I support a team like Kilmarnock, but a team that can just be really, really solid and gritty and grind out wins, I appreciate a lot. And I find it quite likeable as well when they can, when you see them all pulling for each other. So, I mean, it's a shame that Wales come up against Denmark in the next round. That's 2 teams I would like to have seen avoid each other and see how far they could both go in the tournament. But credit to Robert Page, because I don't think I had them bottom of Group A. I don't know if you guys were the same. And the way I think that win against Turkey probably summed up their fighting spirit. And I mean, why Wales have been more successful at tournaments and in football recently than Scotland. Hopefully that's something we can emulate in future tournaments. But let's talk now about the last 16, and we'll be doing that more as the weeks progress. But I'll just start off by asking you, Jack, what ties really catching your eye? What's getting you going?
I think you kind of mentioned it already. Denmark, Wales is going to be really interesting. I think that's going to be 2 teams that we don't really have any negativity towards. Obviously, everyone's going to be wanting Denmark to go on and do really well. But I've enjoyed watching Wales. I think they've been great. Fun fact about Kiefer Moore, he could have represented Spain because of his heritage. His middle names his full name is Kiefer Roberto Francisco Moore.
Love that.
Just in case you didn't know that might be one for the fun fact tracker.
I think I might have done that fun fact or whatever, Jack.
What? You would know. Aside from that, I think Sweden-Ukraine could be very, very interesting. Again, Ukraine are being led by a couple of their kind of more talented players. Yaremchuk up front has been fantastic. Andrei Yarmolenko of West Ham, he's been really, really good. He's been a good kind of breath of fresh air this tournament, just kind of coming in, having a laugh with the Coca-Cola and Heineken sponsorships, everything like that. And I feel like they're both teams with they've got strengths where they are strong, but they have glaring weaknesses as well. So I feel like that could be a very, very well-matched tie. obviously the biggest ones, you've got England, Germany, and Belgium, Portugal. So we're going to be having a big side dumped out at the first stage of knockouts regardless. So I'd imagine they're going to be probably the media's pick. Well, the media's pick is going to be whoever England are playing. But aside from that, it's going to be the kind of biggest teams that are going to draw the biggest amount of eyes. But I feel like I'm, as you said, Sean, going to the kind of hipster route of looking at the potential dark horses or underdogs in the knockout round. So I'll go with Denmark, Wales, but Sweden and Ukraine a close second.
So hipster.
Yeah.
Cam, are you going to stick to that philosophy?
A little bit. My first one was going to be Sweden, Ukraine as well, mainly because I think the game after that will be between them and whoever wins that versus England and Germany. So that's interesting too. I just think Sweden, Ukraine, like we've not even seen Alexander Isak really get let off the leash. Like he's not really, has he scored yet? I think he's maybe scored one. But he's been sort of second fiddle to Kulusevski and Forsberg, who, like, that is a trio in attack is unbelievable. I know it's not an actual trio, but those three are fantastic. I think neither of those teams have outstanding defences. I think Sweden and Ukraine have maybe ruled their luck a little bit when it comes to conceding goals, but I think that'll be a great game. I'm also going to say Belgium, Portugal, because it's kind of the same. Defence is not that incredible with amazing attacks. I don't think in any other games, Italy, Austria, and France, Switzerland don't strike me as great games. I don't see either of those two teams putting up a shock. I hope they do, of course, but I don't see it happening. I think Croatia, Spain might be a tough one to watch because both teams are quite possession based, but not as good as they used to be. So, I'll stick with Sweden, Ukraine. I'll go with Jack's second pick, and I'll go Sweden, Ukraine.
See, I was thinking Croatia, Spain could become good because of that technical aspect. Like if they both sort of let themselves off the leash and don't be too cautious. Then
but if they play like they have been, then it might be a bit.
I mean, the way Croatia controlled us, and but if Spain scored 5 goals in the last game, and we're just calling them boring.
If we get their third match day, that's good. If we get them the first and second,
both teams, absolutely,
it's terrible. Yeah. Hopefully they both picked up. So yeah, you're right. Maybe that will be a good game in the end.
And of course, a lot of people are going to look at Belgium, Portugal, and like you said, it's kind of good attacks and maybe sort of struggling defences. But in that midfield area, I just think Belgium walk over them. I mean, I think that pivot of sort of like Danilo and Carvalho has been really disappointing so far for Portugal. And I know they changed it yesterday and they brought in João Moutinho and Renato Sanchez, who I thought was probably Portugal's best player yesterday.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
But he's a player when you need goals, you're going to keep him in. He's one who's going to sort of like come alive. Are you going to do that against a side like Belgium in a midfield with the likes of Kevin De Bruyne? Or you're going to, I'd imagine they go back to the pivot and try and bring that stability in front of their back four. So it'll be interesting to see if he keeps his place. But certainly all eyes will be on that game because it's two of the favourites. But the interesting thing on that side of the draw is for me, the 3 favourites in the competition are France, Italy and Belgium at this point. And they're all on the same side, Jack. Only one of those teams are going to make the final. Is that something you like to see? Would you rather we waited until the end of the tournament before we saw the best teams come up against each other, or should we just get stuck into this sort of the best playing the best as early as possible?
It's a tough one because you get good arguments for both. I mean, you want to see the stars come up against each other as much as possible, but you do want to potentially see how without being disrespectful, the 16 best teams in Europe, clearly, the lesser sides come up against the big teams and see how they do and potentially cause upset. So there's less room for upset if the big guns all go for each other in the initial stages, but it's monumental clashes at the same time with some of the world's best players right up against each other from the get-go. So I'm in two minds about whether I like this. I feel... Actually, you know what? There's one game that we didn't actually mention at all in that entire conversation, and that's Netherlands, Czech Republic. And I think that has a potential for a bit of a sleeper pick of a good game because I've been massively impressed with the Czech Republic this tournament. They were great against us, and then they put up a really good fight against Croatia. Sorry, and the Netherlands. I've been massively impressed, but they didn't have the most difficult group in the world to navigate the way out of. So I feel like that's going to be a fairly decent match when it comes kind of towards the end of the round of 16, because they're probably going to be one of the last teams to play, or games to play out rather. So yeah, give us excitement, give us goals, no matter the makeup of the games. I'm excited to see what happens regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's hoping the Netherlands progress for my sweepstake hopes. I need that. I really need that. Cameron, anything else you want to touch on in terms of these last 16 games?
Well, Jack, I was thinking about that as well. We not mentioned it, never noticed Holland and Czech. I think Holland can be a bit dodgy at times, but Jack summarised that quite well. Not really sure. I hope we get more individual, like world-class performances. I feel like we've not really seen a lot of that. Maybe we got it Modric against Scotland. Maybe we got it. I don't know. I don't even say Ronaldo. Like, he's been outstanding, but what penalties and stuff. We've not had one game where I've really watched a player and thought, "Oh my god, like that guy is." Had some good standards like that.
I mean, Goodson's had a good game, but it was
nothing out of this world. You know what I mean? I'd love something. I'd love for like Perisic, someone that I like, to do it against Spain or not Spain. I've got a name in the sweepstake, but you know what I mean. I'd love a real massive world-class performance from someone that really goes like, wow, that's put him on the map. They go and have an amazing tournament, just like shooing for player of the tournament sort of thing. Even if it's like a goalkeeper, I'm expecting that from like Donnarumma or something, like a penalty shootout save or just like a game where he takes about 15 shots and saves them all. Like, I just want a massive performance from someone because that really brings an extra kind of excitement to each game.
I'd potentially argue that we saw one in Italy, Switzerland with Locatelli getting the 2 goals and just running from the middle of midfield. So, and the fact that I kind of picked him as one of the kind of standouts going into the tournament, that ticked a lot of boxes for me, thankfully, in terms of my credibility once again.
Where did you pick them to do that, Jack?
Oh, is this you given the opportunity? On my latest article for the wonderful Energy Sport, Edinburgh Napier University's sports journalism website, run by 2 very handsome men.
I don't run it.
I set it up, but
I have to agree with that. Sorry to go from that fantastic plug, but I do agree that's probably the best one yet. Locatelli, it has to be. Yeah.
Does he get back in the side with Verratti playing so well against Wales? So many questions to be asked.
Surely it does. I would.
As knockout stages go on, and we'll be covering it here on the state of the Euros. We no show tomorrow. I will instead be on the Football Insomniac with Colin tomorrow night. Looking forward to being back on that, and then we'll be back talking through the group stages when they kick off. So thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you very much to Cameron Wonstall and Jack Donnelly for joining me. Thank you to all of you for watching, and we'll see you again